you can thank Clint Eastwood, when he came out with the 44 Magnum, all of a sudden that was the most popular weapon, and you couldn't get it anywhere. I mean, it was so much in demand ever since
the Smith and Wesson. The Smith and Wesson, right?
The Smith and Wesson,
right.
Yeah, and sure, it's a great weapon. And the coppers that police officers, I used to say, that was carrying it, they would always say, "Oh yes," he says, "I can stop a car, I can bust an engine block, crack it in, I can do all this kind of stuff." But then you sit back there, a guy with a veteran of we called veterans any police officer that had 3 or 4 years on the job, what you learn quick in the city of Detroit, and he'll tell you it's not a practical weapon. Because for one thing, you better have powerful wrist to handle the recoil. And if you had the sight up on your target again, it's going to be
no follow-up shots.
No follow-up shots.
I'm Riveroo Bay, and welcome to my gun kingdom. Well, we're here with Dennis Lancey, a retired police officer from Detroit metro area. And Denny, it's great to have you on the show with us.
Well, thank you, River.
Appreciate being on the channel very much. Now, we're going to have you share your thoughts and your experiences, but you've been a patrolman in Detroit for over 32 years, and the last 16 years you spent it as a detective.
Right. I wasn't actually a patrolman. Out of the 32 years, I worked uniform patrol for 2 years. And the rest was in various plainclothes assignments. And then when I got promoted to detective, I worked the last 16 years in criminal investigations.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Denny and I are going to discuss urban home protection. And what are your thoughts on the best safety advice for people we can talk about calibers for one.
It has a lot to do is if you're living in a rural area versus an urban area. Say you were living in the Detroit metropolitan area where the homes were close. You certainly don't want to have a weapon that's going to have a high velocity round, full metal jacket, and you don't want to be firing that in your household because you never know where that bullet's going to go. It's going to go through drywall, it's going to go through particle board, and it's going to go through vinyl siding. If you're in a rural area, you don't have that responsibility, but there's a lot of civil responsibilities you have too that they can end up going after you if you have some collateral damage where someone gets hurt or accidentally. So myself, they used to talk about the best home security weapon would be a 12-gauge shotgun. But the problem with that is, where are you going to locate this shotgun if you have to get at it? I mean, most people are not going to have a loaded pump shotgun or an automatic sitting next to their bed.
Especially if they have kids in the house.
Especially if they have kids in the house. It may be sitting in a closet in a bag, and by the time you get the shotgun out of the bag and loaded, you may be confronting the perpetrator that's in your home. So my best thing, what I like, is a revolver. 38 caliber revolver, no magnums, and sit it in my drawer. And the reason why I like a revolver versus an automatic is that you don't have to worry about loading a magazine, or in a panic situation, if you're taking the safety off and all of a sudden you hit the magazine release, there's a lot of problems you can have in a panic situation. Whereas a 38, you're not going to have to deal with that, or a revolver. You're just going to have to pull the trigger. Most revolvers are double action. All the new revolvers are double action, so you just have to point and aim. So that becomes that's what I look at. I don't want to worry about a bullet, where it's going to go in case I miss the target. And so that's why I prefer a small handgun, small caliber handgun.
Now, what type of ammunition would you prefer with that?
Well, if I'm going to use it for home protection, I'd probably go with maybe a plus P hollow point and load it. But you got to understand too is that some of these light frames and that 38 caliber revolver, you know, you can get magnesium or a lighter alloy, and a lot of those particular weapons, lightweight weapons like that, can't handle the plus powder, plus P rounds, so it might crack the cylinder. So yeah, or it might get a crack in the barrel somewhere. So get a standard revolver that could handle that, and with the hollow point, of course, you're going to get great knockdown power with it,
and less penetration.
Less penetration.
Less penetration. Yep. And I think that's what, if people live in an urban environment, I think that's what they have to be mainly concerned about, because these, like take for instance the 9mm. It's a very small bullet, and if you get a semi jacket or a full metal jacket, it's going to penetrate the walls, right? I mean, that's a fast bullet.
We would have these runs in the city of Detroit. I worked a booster unit, and what we did is it was a unmarked car, plain clothes. We worked crime patterns, and we referred to as felony prevention. We were primarily a backup unit for the patrol, and we would respond to runs also, but we could pick and choose what runs we'd want. And anytime a man with a gun run came out in the city of Detroit, you know, in our area, we would jump on something like that. And the problem was that these people, the weapons they had, you know, you just didn't want them to start shooting because the bullets go everywhere. And what was most stressful and dangerous is walking down a long hallway. If the room was located at the end of the hallway, and we absolutely had no cover whatsoever, you know, it's always been a panic situation. You're thinking, what happens if that door opens up right away? You know, what are we going to do? And you got to be careful because we're plain clothes. We don't have uniform presence. You know, and some people will say, well, why don't you wait for a uniformed car to respond? But given the situation that if you do nothing, you know, someone may get hurt or may get shot or may get killed. It might be a domestic problem situation. So a lot of times we just had to go in, and you had to be careful because these people would open up the door, and first thing they're going to say if they start firing, well, we didn't know they were policemen, even though they know us by name from all the times we were in a building.
Yeah,
but these are scenarios that we had to deal with,
right?
And not just me, but other cars that worked this plainclothes assignment. So. You know, we had to take that in consideration also. And getting back to home protection, since I'm talking about that, is that, well, what I would tell someone, let's just say it's a divorced mother. You see a lot of divorces now, and the mother's home by themselves, raising a couple kids. And if she's sleeping upstairs, and let's say she hears noise downstairs, and she knows it's not their kids, she hears glass breaking. Well, the first thing she wants to do is she wants to get on the phone and call 911, make that emergency call. If she has a handgun, the best thing for her to do, especially, let's say, if everybody was sleeping upstairs, was just take cover and at a position where they can see the perpetrator that entered walk up the stairways. What you want to do is try to narrow down your kill zone as much as possible.
So don't go search for the intruder.
Don't search. Okay. Let him come to you. Let him worry about what's going on. And if he never comes upstairs, then just don't go down there and just wait for the police to show up.
You got help on the way because
you got help on the way.
Right.
But what you want to do is that most of the time you're not going to have that time for sight alignment, everything they taught us in the academy, you know, and it's going to be an impulse shot. In Detroit, we had 2 sets of scoring. We would qualify with our handguns twice a year. One was a combat course, and the other was a scoring course. And the combat was probably more valuable than the scoring, because basically it's impulse shooting, and what they taught us to do is point your finger at a flower pot or whatever you want to target, and if you can point to it, just imagine having a gun in there in your hand and fire at that. Fire twice, pause, evaluate the situation, and fire twice again. But always save at least 2 rounds in the cylinder.
Okay.
I mean, usually at that point, you're gonna need 2 shots and that's it.
So you like follow-up shots?
Follow-up shots,
Yep.
yes. And if the person has some distance between you, say 50 feet, well, he's at 50 feet. If he doesn't have a weapon, he can't harm you. So let him get closer. The closer he gets to you, mind you, I'm not talking about a foot from you.
Right.
The closer he gets to you, say
10 feet.
4 foot.
Say 10.
Your odds of missing are gonna,
Right.
they're gonna change drastically in your favor. So.
Now, what did you carry as a service pistol?
Oh, geez. Well, I started out. We had the first year on the job. We had to carry 38 specials, and after
What year was this?
That was in 1973, February of 1973.
Okay. And those were issued.
They were department issued 38 specials, and we couldn't modify the rounds. We had to use a full lead bullet. And after a year, upon confirmation, then we could purchase a different weapon. Our own, we could buy either a Smith or a Colt.
After so many years?
After a year.
After a year. Okay. Now, why did they do that?
Well, people wanted to carry the Magnums, 357 Magnums, and they met the Colt and Smith & Wesson designed handguns for policing that were revolvers. Primarily, when I came on the job, we weren't allowed to carry automatics. Had to be a revolver. And they were designed for double action shooting as a safety feature on them. And
this is in the 70s.
This is in the 70s, right?
Okay.
And so, we'd either get I can't remember the model, maybe Model 17. A Colt Troopers was one. I had a Colt Trooper. Then they had the Colt with the Magnaport on the barrel. I mean, and of course, you can thank Clint Eastwood, when he came out with the 44 Magnum, all of a sudden that was the most popular weapon, and you couldn't get it anywhere. I mean, it was so much in demand ever since
the Smith and Wesson. The Smith and Wesson, right?
The Smith and Wesson, right. Yeah, and sure, it's a great weapon. And the coppers that police officers, I used to say, that was carrying it, they would always say, "Oh yes," he says, I can stop a car, I can bust an engine block, crack it in, I can do all this kind of stuff." But then you sit back there, a guy with a veteran of we called veterans any police officer that had 3 or 4 years on the job. What you learn quick in the city of Detroit, and he'll tell you it's not a practical weapon. Because for one thing, you better have powerful wrist to handle the recoil, and if you had the sight up on your target again, it's going to be
no follow-up shots.
No follow-up shots. And most guys never carried Magnum rounds. They carried 44 specials. So what does it turn it into? Basically, it turns it into a 45 caliber revolver. Basically.
And that gun's got to weigh what, 3.5 pounds?
Oh yes, it was heavy. It was heavy. Eventually I went through the gauntlet of different weapons, Magnum, and I settled in on a 45 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver at the time. I think it shot ACPs, ACPs.
ACPs, yep.
Yeah, they had 45 ammo came in auto rim, I believe, and ACPs. And I think the one ACP.
Now, what year was that?
Oh gosh, that would had to be. I was working plain clothes then, so it was probably end of the 70s. 77, 78, 79. It's amazing because 32 years seems like 6 months now.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember what I did
Right.
Step by step.
Right.
But I like that weapon. I thought that was the perfect urban weapon to have, that 45 caliber revolver. I mean, it was a slow moving bullet. I could be wrong on this. I think it was around 800 feet a second, or maybe 845 feet. It was pretty much at the same speed of a 38.
Yep.
But the bullet was so big.
Knockdown power.
It had knockdown power.
Yep.
And that's what you want as a police officer.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to hit somebody with it, you want to throw him off balance so he can't get that second shot or first shot at you.
Right.
In a gun battle.
Now, urban home protection, what do you think of the 45 if somebody likes the 45?
If somebody can handle it, it's a great weapon.
It's got a lot of recoil, doesn't it?
It does have some recoil, not as bad as the 44 Magnum. I shot the 44 Magnum, and I said, this ain't going to work for me. I don't know how Clint Eastwood could hold it out there with one hand and put 6 in the bullseye. I mean, I guess there's people that can handle it.
Yeah.
A weapon is only as good as the handler.
Exactly.
And that's the whole situation.
That's a good point.
And there's not a perfect weapon.
Right. It's what's perfect for you, right?
What's perfect for you.
Right. Right.
What you like and what I like and what your buddies like, everything is different.
Yeah.
And a lot has to do with confidence. Confidence, with that weapon in your hand.
Well, it takes a lot of practice.
It takes practice.
I don't know how many videos I've said this in, but you've got to practice. If you're going to be proficient with a handgun, you got to practice a lot.
Well, I told you, we talked earlier, and, I came from a family of 6. My dad worked in a factory at Uniroyal for 42 years. We're basic middle class family. No one in my family hunted. I never fired a rifle or a handgun, with the exception of a BB gun. I had a Daisy BB gun. What kid did?
Everybody had a Daisy
Everybody
BB
has
gun.
that. Yeah, my parents would get on me for hunting in the backyard. You know what I was hunting. But anyways, I never fired a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun until I joined the police department. And I talked to our firearms instructor on that, and I was scared about that. And I told him, I pulled him to the side, and I said to him, I says, I may have some problems here because I never fired a handgun, never fired a shotgun or a rifle. He says, you're exactly what we want. We're going to teach you the right way. You're not going to have any bad habits. And, I never qualified expert. Close to expert one time, but mostly sharpshooter, and a lot had to do with me is the fact that I should have shot more, should have practiced more. Yeah.
Well, it's expensive for the average person to go out and buy all this handgun ammunition and practice.
But what we did, we had somebody in the office that was reloading and would sell wad cutters and.
How much ammunition did they give you in the department for practice?
For practice on qualification, 50 rounds.
50 rounds. But how about
that was combat shooting and
did they require you to go to the range like every month or every 2 weeks or anything?
We went to the range twice a year. We had at one point at the highest, we had over 3,000 officers on the job. So it's hard to schedule people.
That's a lot of money too in ammunition for everybody.
It is. And for a big city like that, with the cost of just maintaining vehicles was a burden on the city. And I went through I saw, when I came on the job in the city of Detroit, I saw it at its best. All the big name department stores were down on Woodward Avenue. We used to have the Hudson's Day Parade every day. I mean, all the big shopping centers were down. This was before malls. And then I saw it at its worst. And then by the time I was retiring 32 years later, it's coming back. And now it's leaps and bounds. How nice the city is. I mean, you got to be careful. You got to be aware of your surroundings when you go downtown and different areas. Well, don't get sidetracked.
Let's talk about that too. A situational awareness is important for urban home protection too.
Oh,
right?
Yes, yeah.
Right. What can you give the viewers out there some information that would be good for them for situational awareness around their neighborhood? Let's say
for a non-police person, you have to be aware of your surroundings. Look at the cars that are parked on the street. Kind of memorize, get familiar with the cars. When you see a different car parked on the street, look at it and keep an eye on it and look for suspicious activity. Something out of the normal. And what I find with myself now after 32 years is I'm constantly, everywhere I go, I'm constantly looking at crowds, looking at people. If I go to a convenience store or a party store of some sort, I walk in, I look in the back. Is there anybody loitering there? Is there someone loitering at the door? I'm constantly thinking, being aware of my surroundings. And it just comes natural after a period of time. And I'm sure that other police officers that are on the job and retired, they'll experience the same thing. But when you work in a major metropolitan city like Detroit or Cleveland or like LA, I mean, it happens and you see more of it and you become more aware of it. And you just kind of want to see who belongs and who don't belong, basically. And I'm not saying for you to call the police every time you see something out of the, but just be aware of what's going on in case something does happen. You might be able to supply some information. Well, yeah, I've seen that car there parked for a couple of days, but I just assumed it was whoever, a friend of a friend or something like that. So, don't walk in a fog.
Right.
Be aware of what you're doing. Look at someone. If he looks kind of suspicious, just say hi to him and see what kind of reaction you get from him. I had a off-duty episode one time at a 7-Eleven. I was coming home from wherever, and I stopped at the 7-Eleven. I don't know. I probably was going to picking up coffee, or I can't remember what it was. But it was after midnight, and I walked in. The first thing I noticed, the guy standing in the back of the store by the beer cooler, and I know they were going to, at the time, I think they were going to cut off beer sales pretty quick here. And then I saw another one at the door, and I saw another one doing a little shopping, and they were young kids, and my gut told me something was wrong. And there was a young girl working. She was by herself. She was behind the counter, and so I picked up whatever I was going to pick up. I can't even remember what that was, but I can tell you detailed information about what I experienced, but I can't remember what I bought. But so I made the purchase, and I just stood at the counter. And I was curious to what these three people were doing. Now, I had my badge on me, and I had I had my handgun on me. We were required to carry it. We're on duty 24 hours. And I just stood there. And the one guy came up, and he bought a pack of gum, and all three of them left. And I says, okay, this ain't good. So I told her to call 911 and say there was three suspicious people, describe them, and get the ball rolling. So I left. When they left, I left. So I drove around the block. Again, my police instinct.
You acted like you left. Yep.
Acted like I left. Yep. Parked my car, at a building next to the 7-Eleven, and I started walking back on foot. And I noticed when I first went in, what first caught my eye, when I first walked into the store, there was a car. Instead of parked in head first, he had backed in. That allowed him perfect observation of an intersection in view of traffic coming in three directions. That's a lookout for a holdup. And so that's what drew my attention to the person standing in the back of the store, one at the front, and one looked like he was shopping. And given the fact that she was there alone, they probably cased the place and knew she was alone. So I came back. Well, the car was gone, but it returned and parked on the south side of the building. I was, facing I believe it would be the east side of the building when I walked in. So he was just around the front of the building, and he was parked in the same way. So I said, this is not good. So I went in, and I stood right next to the cash register again, and I watched these guys, and they stood there for about 3 seconds. They were eyeballing me, and they ran out. And I think maybe 3 minutes later, the patrol car showed up. I gave them the information. Now, what were they up to? I didn't see a weapon. What were they going to do? I don't know. But we had a lot of snatch and grabs back then. The kids would want to steal beer.
What year was this?
Oh, you're asking these tough
Making
questions.
you think a lot.
It was probably in the early 80s.
Okay.
I said they were, I would want to think maybe that they were going to just steal a case of beer and run out and throw it in the back of the car, because there was a lot of that going on. But you never know. Right. You never know. But the fact of the matter is they knew something was up with me too. Whether they suspected I was a policeman or not, but they didn't want the altercation. So they bugged out. They bugged out. Were they high on drugs and stuff? I don't think they were. They were in control of their faculty, so that tells me something. So, but it gets back. You got to be aware of your surroundings. I mean, certain areas you just don't want to hang out because of whatever. You might be some gangs or whatever. You just got to be conscious of what you're doing all the time and don't let your guard down.
Good point. Good point. Now, later in your career, didn't you switch to a Glock 40?
Yes, after a period of time, back in the early 80s, the department, they let us use automatics, semi-automatics. But they had to be Smith or Colt, and the first round had to be double action. So I went to aluminum. I think it was aluminum frame. I can't 454. I could be wrong on that, but it was a Smith & Wesson 45 caliber weapon. But it wasn't a steel frame. It was the aluminum frame, maybe, or something.
So you didn't carry a Glock 40 then?
Not then. After a number of people showed up at qualification with these weapons, then the city negotiated the deal with. They talked to SIG and they talked to the Glock, and Glock gave us the best price. So then we were issued 40 caliber Glocks.
Okay, the whole department.
The whole department.
Okay.
That was department issued gun, and that was the sweetest thing I ever fired in my life.
Really?
Oh my God! Yes, that Glock 40. Yep. Although the 45, the military 45 caliber, I mean, that was a great weapon also. I mean, you could drop it in a mud puddle or whatever and just shake it and it would fire. But with the Glock 40, it gave me a larger magazine capacity. I believe it was 16 rounds, maybe 17 with one in the chamber, or I don't recall, but a large capacity magazine came with it. So it gave you a number of shots. And plus it had that great knockdown power too.
Right.
Like the 45.
Right.
And a big bullet, slow moving bullet.
So that's kind of a middle ground for between the 9mm and the 45, right?
Oh, yeah. 9mm could bounce off of windshields.
Okay.
On the angle. I mean, going back, I used to talk to, I talked to some Korean War veterans. I had friends, fathers, type deal. And he used to talk to us about the Chinese would be on, they would be on top of the hill and they'd be running down at us or vice versa. And we would have these M1 carbines. And he said you'd have to shoot them 3 or 4 times before they'd fall down because the bullets would just pass right through them.
Well, what are I'm sure you've encountered people that have been high on drugs and things like that. How would a 9mm compare to a 40, let's say?
Oh, God.
Or something like that?
Unless, again, it's going to be the user, depending where you shoot the person, but you could put a bullet through the shoulder, and the person could keep momentum coming at you.
With a 9mm.
With a 9mm. He's not going to lose his balance. And, but not in all cases. I'm just saying generally
depending
speaking,
where you
depending where you hit him and everything. But with that 45 or the 40 caliber, you hit him in the leg or not, you're going to knock him down.
Yeah, or in
hit
the
him in the shoulder, you're going to knock him down.
Exactly.
You're going to knock him off balance.
Right.
And that could save your life.
And it's just because of the ballistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 9mm is a faster bullet and it's a smaller bullet. Mm-hmm. Where the 40 and the 45, it moves so slow that it produces more knockdown power.
Yeah, and they're all great weapons. Like I said, they all have their place. Like in the military or something, you may want that 9mm.
Why is that?
You may want to shoot through a door or a window, or and so it may have that. But
What about home protection with a 9mm?
well, again, you're going to have to worry about where that bullet's going to go through.
They're responsible. The person that fires that weapon, they're responsible where it ends up.
Oh yeah, it's even with the concealed weapons permit. I mean, everybody, you have to assume now, especially in the state of Ohio, you have to assume now everyone you confront on the street is armed and has a concealed weapon, because there is no concealed weapon. I mean, you can get the concealed weapons permit, but everybody has the right to carry a concealed weapon.
Yeah, that's in Ohio.
In Ohio. And you have to assume that these people are
now, a lot of states have gone to permitless carry. Now, it's not nationwide yet, I don't think, at the time this video is being made. But how many more states are left?
Oh, geez.
To go? Not that many, right?
Probably not that many. I think Michigan has open carry now. My old state, sure. I'm not sure, but I know people are wearing assault rifles. They can wear assault rifles and walk up and down the street. I mean, to a person who's non-policeman and sees that, they probably don't get excited. But when I see it, my gut starts to churn. My question is, if he gets upset with somebody, what is he going to do? Why does he feel he needs that weapon?
Right.
And I'm an advocate of carrying weapons and guns and everything. I believe in the Second Amendment. But what I don't believe in is have to sit here and analyze these people as to what they're going to do. If I'm sitting in a Denny's restaurant, then all of a sudden some guy shows up and he's got this assault rifle draped out in front of him, and I'm sitting there, I'm not going to enjoy my meal because someone may get this individual upset and he may charge that weapon. You just don't know. You hear about it all the time. But
I know the laws vary from state to state, yeah. But like Ohio, I think you have permitless carry makes you carry it concealed. You can't carry it open, I think, in Ohio, right?
I'm really not up on that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure in Ohio what the law is there, but I thought that
everybody should check on their state laws and make sure they follow state laws.
That's it. But everything is changing so quick.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just don't. I don't feel it's necessary for people to have assault weapons and be carrying up and down. I mean, granted, you want them, you have them, you can have fun with them, do what you want to do with them, but you have that right to do it, and I understand you have that right, but other people have rights too.
Right.
And most people are scared to death of them.
Why do you think departments have gone to the 9mm? Is it because of lack of or less recoil, more capacity? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's why departments choose a certain weapon has a lot to do with the best deal they can get.
Okay,
now,
good point.
Think of it. Detroit, when they went to Glocks, they bought about 3,000 of them, and that's a huge expense. And but maybe it's if that department feels this is what they want their officers to have, by all means, equip them if that's what they want. But a lot of the things that I'm talking about today is my personal feelings and my personal beliefs based upon 32 years experience and the tragedy and things that I've saw in my 32 years out there. I hate to see, that's why I hate to see these weapons out on the street, and we just have too many of them. Too many of them. I mean, it's at some point we're going to have to decide what's more important.
Right.
But I don't know. It's whatever gives you, basically what it is, whatever gives your department the best deal. They can pick them up for. And what's practical for their particular area. If they're in a rural area, that 9mm may be the weapon of choice because it will shoot further. But
true,
a handgun is not for distant shots, anyways.
And being that they are less recoil, you're going to be more accurate with them too.
Sure. But you know what? Most of the shootings that you have, the police shootings that you see every day on the news and everything, they're all combat. Very seldom does someone's going to get up there and, aim in and think about sight alignment and pull that trigger. You're going to pull it from your holster, and you're going to shoot from the hip. Basically, that's what it is. So, like I say, it's the weapon is as good as the handler, and that's what I think what it boils down to.
You know, a lot of people out there, our viewers, are probably concerned about, if they have young kids in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the best place that you recommend people store these handguns or whatever they use for a home defense weapon so that it doesn't get into the wrong hands?
Well, that's a problem. If you're, in your bedroom would be the best place to store it. When you go to bed at night, maybe take it out of a safe. But what's the sense of having a weapon for home defense if you have to lock it up in the safe? Because if and when you need that chance, I mean, crimes occur in the daytime. It's just not night.
Danny, what is the first line of defense someone should have in a home environment?
A well-charged phone.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
I say a good guardian dog, like a German Shepherd,
yes.
Rottweiler,
Well, any dog,
Pitbull, whatever.
Any dog that will bark.
Yeah.
Any dog that will bark.
Because that's going to scare away intruders too, right?
Well, yeah. It's funny that most people, professional burglars, they know the house prior to breaking into it. They know who belongs.
That's where we come back to situational awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They know who's inside, who's not, who belongs.
Is there someone casing your house?
Lights on and everything. Like we used to have in the wintertime, we had a bunch of home burglaries. And it was a couple guys walking around with snow shovels in the wintertime knocking on doors.
Oh,
can we shovel your snow? And if no one answered the door, they'd walk around the back and break in. And this is daylight. So you're not safe just because it's light out. So you have to have that weapon in a closet, and you have to educate your kids. Maybe take that. Say if it's a revolver, sit the kids down. I'm talking about kids maybe 8 or 9 years old when they at that curious age, and unload it. Let them hold it, let them feel it, and explain to them that this is a weapon. It's not a toy. It's not something to show your friends. But if you never expose your children to that weapon and explain to them what it's for, they're going to be inquisitive, and they're going to want to go in there when you're gone and pull it out, take it to school, and show their buddies and all this stuff. So the best thing to do, I think, was to educate them. And it's a thin line. I would never have a trigger guard on my revolver or automatic or something like this because I don't want to. I live alone, so it's easier. But I have grandkids, and when they come over, I secure my weapon. I put it away, and I tell the kids they're not allowed to go in this closet. And they understood. They knew I was a policeman, and they understood. So I never had problems like that. So big thing is educate the younger kids in the home.
Okay.
To let them know and let them get comfortable with it.
I know when I was a young boy growing up, my parents we would go over scenarios that could happen and be prepared. So what would you recommend for people to do to, sit down as a family and discuss if something would happen during the night or during the day, this is what we're going to do?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's, it's a great idea, but, especially for fire.
Right.
Right. We're going to all use this door. We're all going to use this window, or if this doesn't work, have a plan.
But let's say that someone breaks into the house and the bedrooms are pretty close to each other. Would you tell the kids to go in the closet? Would you tell them to get under the bed? You know, because we're thinking about like if they choose a handgun or a rifle that would have over penetration going into walls and continuing through the next wall. What's the plan
If they
of
could run
action?
under the bed, I would go under the bed because people can't shoot into closed closets,
Okay.
closed doors.
What
So,
would be the signal that you would give? How could you prepare the family by a certain signal that you could give them?
well, you would have to sit down and you would have to discuss it with your kids and say, this is what we're going to do at this situation. If you hear me say this, have a trigger word and do it. But the main thing is have a fully charged cell phone and get the police rolling. First thing off the bat, get the police rolling
Good point.
and get them coming. And then you...
Don't try to take care of the situation yourself.
oh, no.
But sometimes it takes, 10, 15 minutes for the police to respond, depending if you live in an urban area
Yes.
as opposed to a rural area.
Yes. And the big thing is primarily is going to be safety. If you're alone, you only have to worry about yourself. If there's kids, you have to worry about them. And that's why when we were talking earlier, depending on the layout of your home, if you had 3 bedrooms down and you had Johnny in one room and Sally in the other, and then yourself, you would have to, and it comes off of one hallway. Well, you got to keep the vision on that hallway if that person comes down. And if he comes down that hallway, don't say nothing. Just shoot. Just shoot. Don't say freeze. Don't play Hollywood police or anything.
Gotcha. Yeah. Right.
He gets close, and if he looks like he's going into one of those rooms, you fire right away.
2 shots.
2 shots. And if he bypasses those doors, let him come. Because the closer he gets to you, the better shot you're going to have, if you have to shoot. And the stuff about it, if you don't have a handgun, if you don't have any home protection, then you start throwing things at them and screaming. Make a lot of noise. Throw objects through windows. You got to do something to draw attention to your house.
Okay. Good point.
But if you're gonna consider a handgun for home protection, I would go a revolver, basic revolver, snub 38, and buy it from a dealer where they may have a range inside their gun dealership or gun store, and where you could fire a few of these weapons and get the right one that's comfortable for you if you feel confident.
That's a really good point. I think a lot of people buy a handgun or any kind of gun based on what their buddies bought.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
And I ran into a guy the other day, and I was talking to him, and he was saying, "Hey, I'm going to go out and buy a handgun. I'm going to get a Glock 9mm." And I asked him, I said, "Well, why are you going to get a Glock 9mm?" He said, "Well, that's what my buddy bought. He likes it." But wouldn't it be advisable to test out a 40, 45, and a 9mm, or a 38 also, right? Test them. And go to a store that you can
shoot him into a silhouette, fire him into a silhouette. And after you test fire each one of these guns, when I say test fire, maybe 3 rounds through them, look at your pattern. And if one particular gun stands out, that tells me that...
So look at the grouping.
Look at your grouping.
So fire 5 at least of each.
At least 5. Whatever the dealer...
Every handgun. Yep.
Whatever the gun dealer would, let you shoot. But just because your neighbor says, I would get a 357 Magnum. That's what you want. Kill anything, draw it out. It's not. It doesn't work that way.
It's what you prefer that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Another good weapon is a high standard 22 automatic. They're very effective, but you would have to have good knowledge with that gun and know where to hit. Center mass and where to hit and try to hit a bone and get that bullet to start bouncing around. And there's hardly any recoil to it. You could do that, but you may have to fire it 6, 7 times. If that person is armed, he'll probably get a shot off.
Right.
Unless you.
I think too, recoil is a big thing with people, and 9 millimeter. If that's the only thing that you're going to be comfortable with, it's better than nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have to get a hollow point for home protection, and practice at the range at least every month, a couple times. I even suggest 2-3 times a week.
Well, it's just like some of the videos I saw that you have on when you're shooting the M4, I think it was.
Yeah. Yep.
That rifle never moved.
Right.
I mean, you pop, 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 pop. It never moved. No recoil.
Right.
That's what makes those weapons so effective in a combat situation.
And what about what's nice about the 223 round is that once it penetrates the first wall, it starts to yaw, goes sideways, or starts to tumble.
Tumble, yeah.
So it's less likely to over penetrate in a home environment and go through multiple walls, say like a 9 millimeter. And that's why I prefer, and this is what I'm comfortable with. Okay, not everybody's going to be comfortable with this, but I actually sleep with that Colt M4 next to me. Now, it looks like an M4, but it's not a full automatic, okay? It's only a semi-automatic, so it's a look-like M4. So basically, the internal workings of the rifle is a AR-15. But that's what I'm comfortable with. Handguns, to me, I have to practice too much to be proficient with them.
Right.
And that's going to cost a lot of money in ammunition.
Yes.
But my first line of defense, Denny, is a German Shepherd dog, and she sleeps right by the front door.
Well, when I practice, I don't shoot any further than maybe the 12-yard line with a handgun. And that's probably going to be the furthest distance I'm going to shoot. Because if anybody's further than that, I'm not going to shoot.
Right.
Again, you're talking about liability and everything else. Sure, if we're out in the open and I have no cover and he's firing, of course I'm going to continue to fire. But like I say, in most cases, you're going to be inside 12 yards. That's your shooting.
That's right. That's right.
And most of the homicides occur 4 or 5 feet away. They're headshots.
Oh, really?
A lot of them.
I didn't know that. Okay. Any memorable experiences you'd like to share with the viewers?
Oh, I have a lot of experiences, but I wouldn't like to share them. It brings back
bad memories, huh?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I believe in a guardian angel. I think back at situations that I was in where somebody was looking out for me and protecting me. Because I'll say one in particular. We had this, we work at 9 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning. We're working in the downtown area of Detroit. And it was probably in I was working with Bob McIntyre. So it was probably in the 80s. And a number of people were getting held up in the early morning hours. They were waiting, they'd be dropped off at a certain location by a bus, and they were waiting for another bus to take them to their, they had a transfer, and they were getting held up while they were waiting for buses. And so here it was in the dead of winter. It's cold, it's winter, and, we're looking we have an activity log, and we need, our bosses used to get on us and say, hey, it's 1:30 in the morning. You didn't do nothing after 1:30? No entries, no special attentions. You got to put something on your activity log. So we went out there. We needed what we refer to as a name for our sheet. And you put down the location where you investigated this guy. Here's this person. He was sitting at a bus stop all by himself at probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Shoebox was next to him. And so I was jumping. That meant that I was on the passenger side of the vehicle. We were plain clothes, unmarked car. And I showed him, I rolled down the window, and it was the dead of winter. I showed him my badge. And I says to him, come here. Was that the smart thing to do? No. I should have got my hind end out of the car with my partner and walked over and investigated him. But we got lazy. It happens sometimes. So I said, come here. So he started towards me. And I said, bring your shoebox. So he turned around, he picked up his shoebox, and he brought it over, right? And I said, give me the shoebox. I'm thinking that he broke a window and stole a pair of shoes, right?
Oh.
Downtown business district. Well, as it turns out, he had the back of the shoebox flap, so it would pull down. The corners were ripped. And inside the shoebox, he had a 22 high standard automatic with a full magazine. You know, we arrested him for carrying a concealed weapon, but we lost it because he said it wasn't his. It was sitting on the bench when he sat down, one of those type of deals. But, you know, after that, my partner and I, we had a come to Jesus moment. Mm-hmm. And we said, from now on, we're not cutting corners on your investigation. And we shouldn't have. But you'll get lazy. But it's little episodes like that that keep you sharp and keep you going.
Keep you on your toes, right?
Yeah.
Well, Denny, I appreciate your time today. Was there any key points that you would like to go over with the viewers? And I hope that the viewers down in the comment section leave their thoughts on home protection and everything. But are there any key points that you want to leave everybody with?
Probably the most important I would suggest is be aware of your surroundings, your situations, surroundings. Don't look for trouble. Don't go out there with the attitude that you're going to challenge trouble, that you're going to be able to handle anything put your way. Just be aware of your surroundings, and every once in a while say to yourself, if this happens, what am I going to do? And if you choose to buy a weapon for home protection, you know, make sure you go to an established gun dealer, gun business that's been in business a long time, that have adequate people behind the counter that's been working there a number of years that really know about handguns. And don't be afraid to ask them questions and see if you can fire a weapon or two before you decide on what you're going to get. Because whenever you pick that weapon up, and if you discharge it, you know, they may come after you for liability issues or even criminal. So, but the main thing is what I would suggest would be just be aware of your surroundings.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here today, Denny.
Thank you. I
appreciate all your time.
Enjoyed talking to you about it.
Thanks very much. Come back again, all right? We'll do some firing at the gun range, all right?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great. But anyway, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button. Share it with your friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See you in the next video. Thanks.